Belgian Trappist breweries are all closely related. Westvelteren began brewing beer in 1838 at the St. Sixtus Monastery. 12 years later, monks from this brewery went on to create a secondary monastery and began brewing Chimay beer. Almost 100 years later, following the conclusion of World War II, St. Bernardus brewed beer under the St. Sixtus name. In 1992, the brewing agreement came to an end. Since that time, St. Bernardus has used its own name for beer production, including for the St. Bernardus 12, which is based on the classic Westvelteren 12. Is it able to hold its own against other Trappist beers? Find out now on Two Dudes Reviews. What up, guys? Yep, today we have St. Bernardus Abt 12 or Abt 12 or Abbey 12. I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to say that, but number 12. And of course, as I start, the dog starts chewing on her bone. Leela, come here. I have a new dog. She has 3 legs, and so she kind of thumps around on her hind leg. She makes more noise than anybody else. But, what are you gonna do? Not the one that you see right now. She has been around. The brown one, if you see the brown one's face stick up. And that's the 3-legged one. But anyways, so I'm pretty excited about this one. It is a Belgian Trappist quadruple. And yes, I do not have the most accurate glass to pour that in, but what are you going to do? You don't always have a chalice just sitting around, let me grab my chalice. Who has a chalice? Actually, there are probably enough people do, but whatever, let's get to the smell. Which might be a little difficult with all the foam. Maybe that's why you're supposed to have a chalice. But okay, I'm going to let the foam die down a little bit. But this, if you check out the Top 10 Belgian Beer video up there, which is, done with a composite rating of Beer Advocate and Rate Beer, this is in the top 10. It is, again, yeah, it is one of the classic Trappist beers. It has your official Trappist logo on here somewhere, I believe. Yeah, it's on here somewhere. But, again, it's a classic, so let's get into it. Alright. A little bit of, I don't know if I'm getting smoke in it, or... It is heavier, it's got a little bit of that barley aroma going on to it. Making her thirsty too. Maybe a little bit of apricot, a little bit of toffee almost. Maybe a little coffee too, a little toffee action going on. Nothing like some toffee coffee. I think maybe there's a little bit, a hint of smoke. It has a dried, I feel like a dried, almost raisiny kind of thing going on too. Again, but since the aroma notes are going to change as the head drops down. Man, they just don't want me to get through this one. But it has almost a little bit of a barley wine thing going on too. But it has overall, it's complex enough that I'm going to recommend it. It just has a nice, well-bodied, just, kind of aroma just going in a good circle. It doesn't just kind of cut off. There's always something new that you're kind of uncovering and discovering. So I'm going to recommend it on the smell, and now let's get into the taste. Oh yeah, that is that has that barley It really does taste like a barley wine. Not as bitter. There's almost like a chalkiness to it. It does. It tastes like it's almost approaching a wine kind of taste going on there. Not as sweet as what you might get. Maybe a little dry, my dry wine, but it doesn't have, not a full like bitter that you might get from just like a straight barley wine, but it does have that kind of deeper grape raisin kind of flavor going on there. It is a little almost like a chalk smokiness to it too. More on the chalk, less on the smoky. A little woodsy, a little like that smoke. I think is almost the subtle smoke's almost like a campfire because you get a little bit of the wood in there too. Not as much as the coffee. I'm not getting as much as that. Maybe a little bit of the toffee though. It's a very complex beer. You can tell it tastes like an old beer. And when you think of like old Belgian beers from the 1500s, this is the kind of beer that you think of. This is the thing that you can actually picture this old dude just like, just doing his thing, dipping his chalice into the giant cask of beer back in, Dark Ages or whatever. That's what this thing tastes like. It's like what you picture when you think of beer, or when you see like Game of Thrones or something and they're drinking in a flagon of ale. This is kind of what you're picturing or imagining it's gonna taste like. It has that near wine experience, but it's still a beer. And some people that are like their beers lighter, crisper, whatever, they're probably not going to go for this, but it's not like super heavy. It's also not super bitter. It's not like all the way down to barley wine. It has some of those notes, but not all the way. And yet it does still have, I'm trying to see, it's 10% alcohol, so it is getting close to that wine level. So, but I'm going to recommend it on the taste because it really does have that old world beer taste thing going on, and it's definitely worth the try just to check it out. So, alright, next is value for price. This is where these kinds of beers get a little tricky, because when you get one of these, which is 11.2 ounces, and I believe it probably ages in the bottle. I don't know if it says that on here. So you're not even going to be able to drink like the last ounce anyways. So you're able to drink 10.5, 11 ounces, and you'd be paying $6. Yeah, I think it was around $6 for the one beer. It depends. If you're into this kind of beer, you're gonna spend the $6 for it. I mean, you're paying $6 for the history, for the very unique taste that you're not going to get from many places. This is not something that's like you just replicate. There's probably a lot of breweries, especially popped up in the United States, that try to do that Trappist style thing, and they just can't get it right because there's just something about a beer that they've obviously been working on for a while, or at least the brewery has been around for a very long time, and that's something you just can't replicate. There's just that history that you just can't make up. And so you really have to, when you're getting into something like this, that, and it's going to cost a lot more than your average beer, and you're probably not just going to have just this on in the fridge, because then you got like $600 worth of beer. Yes, that means you'd have 100 of these, so good luck finding 100 of them. But it's tricky. You're either gonna see the price, balk at it, and be like, absolutely not, or you can be like, that's my kind of beer anyways. It's from Belgium.
It's a Trappist beer. I know I'm going to dig it. And you do it. So it's just like, it's a hard spot to go for. So I'm going to give it a half just for that reason. Because it's not just like the $6-7. It's still more expensive than a good amount of the other Abbey Trappist beers from Belgium out there. So you're still spending another $1 or $2. So it's definitely worth something to check out. Whether you're going to just keep it and do it all the time, probably not. So, but because it is higher than a lot of the others, that's why I'm giving it a half. Next is distinction. How distinct is it from other beers, especially other Trappist Abbey style Belgian beers? I think it is a nice, it is different from like surround sound dog drinking going on. It is different because a lot of the other Trappist beers, there's almost like a floral bouquet thing going on. Like I'm thinking of like an Orville kind of beer, where it has like just a floral. It tastes like what you look at a bunch of flowers and you're like, if they turn that into beer, this is what it would taste like. A lot of those other Trappist beers, that's what it tastes like. This is a totally different thing. This goes old school like beer wine kind of thing. So it's way different. And because of that, I'm going to recommend it on distinction. It tastes old school. It tastes what you think the beer in the Renaissance movies taste like. So it's definitely distinct. Next is drinkability. I'm going to give this another little sip. Surprisingly, for a beer that is 10% alcohol, it's not super heavy. I mean, you're basically drinking wine, at least alcohol content wise, but it doesn't have that super dryness or overt sweetness to it that your run-of-the-mill bottle of wine's gonna have. And so you would be able to drink this, sip it. If you're actually this would be a great beer if you're with somebody and it's kind of like a wine party and you don't want to just be smashing beers all, you don't want to be that guy that's just killing a 6-pack while everyone's just sipping on their wine. You don't want to be that guy. And so this would be a great beer to have because you'd basically be drinking the same alcohol level as everyone else, and so you could drink at the same pace. And so because of that, you could maybe get a couple of these and sip them along the way, and you'd have no problem with that. And so because of that, because of the high alcohol content, because it's not like super heavy, super bitter, super anything that's gonna prevent you from enjoying it, I'm gonna recommend it on the drinkability because you could have a couple of those without a problem. So last category is would I buy it again? And it's just one of those things that it's like, do you feel like having a high-end Abbey Trappist beer on hand? It's not one of those things that you just feel like every day. It's like, I feel like having an $8 Trappist beer today. You don't do that every day, probably. And so I would buy it again. So I am going to say I would buy it again, but it's not going to be like an everyday thing or a weekly thing, or probably even a monthly thing. It's just going to be one of those things where I have to be in the mood for, or I'm going to that, that wine party and I don't want to drink wine. Nothing against wine. It has its place. But I'm a beer dude. And so this would be that kind of thing. So yes, on would I buy it again in the right circumstance. So that is my review of St. Bernardus Abt 12, Abt 12, or whatever, 12 old dudes. If you've had this before, let me know. Put it in the comments. Now that the dogs are all laying down and sleeping, then I'm done, of course. But if you've had it before, let me know in the comments. Maybe you hate it. Maybe it's like the greatest beer you've ever had. Let me know. Feel free to like and subscribe. We got a lot, new beers coming up. We got a bunch of new top 10 videos coming up. Check those out. I got a new little show that I'm cooking up that, hopefully that gets out in the next couple weeks. But anyways, that is the review. So for myself and for St. Bernardus Bernardus, for St. Bernardus, take it easy.